Boom! We are
Boom!
live.
We are alive. Alive.
Alive.
And
Maybe
alive.
you more than me, bro. Maybe you more than me. I'm partially alive, I think.
You are in that time right now. We are literally 12 hours apart or something. So
yeah,
it'll be about like, what time is it? 2 in the morning? Or
yeah,
almost 3 in the morning?
Nearly 4 in the morning over here. So yeah, that's
Jeez.
it is getting on. But no, it's I'm actually half awake because it's just the heat, man. It's the heat. Yeah, even at night, it's just sweltering. So I've been losing a bit of sleep over the last few weeks actually, but it's fine. It's just a matter of adjusting to this, I guess. I mean, we all are adjusting, aren't we? I mean, these are interesting times. Yeah. So what's new on your side, buddy? What's I hear that you guys are on lockdown level 3, right? So what's new? What's changed? What's emerged?
No, well, nothing has really changed over the last few days, to be honest. I've just been at home, so I couldn't tell what's going on the outside world because I wasn't out there.
Fair enough.
So yeah, I'm grounded. Grounded is a good place to be. Yeah,
it is. It's essential in these times, my friend. There's so much upheaval going on right now.
Yeah.
I guess something that's been weighing on me a bit, I guess, in recent weeks is just how everyone seems to be kind of struggling with parts of their life that they wish were present but are now gone. So they're dealing with a sense of loss. And it's fair to say that we're all maybe grieving or mourning some aspect of pre-COVID times and our pre-COVID lives that's no longer present now, and perhaps we feel that we are somehow diminished because of this, certainly in our level of happiness, perhaps. This is something I've been reflecting on for myself, is that I'm really mourning the loss of metal gigs and festivals. Really, really missing this, actually, big time. It's fair to say that I've shared this with you before. I feel like the metal community is one of only a small handful of communities that I really do feel a sense of belonging with. Right? So I guess for me, what I'm missing now is just interaction with like-minded individuals who enjoy similar music. There's something really heartwarming about being with someone else who shares and enjoys what you're into, and is having a moment together with you. If you imagine moshing at a gig is a little bit different from just kind of bobbing your head in your room listening to a track. Totally different experience. So what's going on in your end? Has there been anything that's dropped out of your life recently, perhaps?
Well, I over the last the first lockdown, I think it was when my relationship came to an end too. So there was a little bit of adjustment throughout that period, and that was on a personal level that affected me, obviously. I mean, I felt, like for me in the lockdown, I kind of really gained a lot more. in I lose some, you gain some, kind of thing. So that's all balanced out a little bit. But yeah, there were losses, especially I think collectively we were experiencing the loss of our personal freedom, which is so definitely, kind of like affecting the larger population out there. And a lot of people are up in arms right now, very vocal about it, mainly because of that loss of freedom and ability to get on with their work and all that stuff. So in many ways, they're coming up with a lot of like reasons, even some cases blaming whatever out there that needs to take the blame for the outcome of the decisions as well. And then I think it all comes down from the emotion of loss, and it's big. One thing I do want to cover as well, like
please.
And this was part of the suicide training that I was going through recently, within I think the last 2-3 weeks. Very insightful course about what leads certain individuals to suicidal thinking and who affects and all that stuff. So, but one thing I did learn, I learned a lot of things, but one thing that really stood out was the whole concept about how trauma, as a result of loss, any sort of loss, can escalate to the point of mental illness and to the point of suicidal thinking or even suicide. So that really highlights how big a factor loss is in mental health, or even in our daily lives, and how we adapt to it and all. That's also kind of like instigated the thinking that sometimes you got to lose stuff in order to gain stuff. And I think we call that process change. So which means that if you want to instigate any form of change, there has to be a degree of loss to make space for the new.
Absolutely. Makes sense.
Maybe that's what's actually happening in society right now. We're going through changes on a societal level, on an individual level. We are faced with this possibility of change, and now, if loss doesn't get resolved, then maybe we can't really fully embrace the gains that come as a result, or the opportunities that come as a result of the change, because we're hanging on to something. And that's why we've got like children's movies with the soundtrack, let it go. Sorry, I had to bring it in, but
it's relatable, certainly. Yes. Wow, that's actually a really insightful point. Loss, I guess the immediate reaction to loss is that it feels like the rug has kind of been pulled from under you. It's unexpected, it's unpleasant, and you feel like something has been taken away from you. You feel like an aspect of your life is now diminished or has deteriorated. And so I guess the immediate reaction to that is to feel sore about that and to try and mitigate that loss. But you're absolutely right that when something goes, something will come as well. When the tide goes out, the tide comes back in again. It's just part of that cycle. And so when a door closes, another opens, and sometimes it's necessary to take a step back, to take 2 steps forward. And one interpretation of the step backwards is that, that's loss. I've lost this distance. I've gained this ground, and now I'm going backwards. I feel like I'm regressing. But what if that is necessary to route you towards a more accelerated course? You don't know about that, so you do need to take that backward step. And so that is all part of a process of change. And you brought up process, and I think this is a process for all of us to process too. And that, I guess, is why this situation we're in is so confounding.
Yeah, the when you mention all that stuff about one door closes, another one opens and stuff, I like to always draw back to the whole the wisdoms around the Chinese language, and there's this word called weiti, which is in other words is translated to crisis, and if you break down the 2 syllables, wei and ji. Wei is basically danger, 危险, danger. So it's indicative of the loss that's going through, or the destruction. And then 机 is 机会, which is opportunity. So in essence, the word crisis consists of two words: the danger and the opportunity. So in a sense, it's the one door closing, another one opening. Always quite cool to see in this sort of balanced way, you know, like it's two-sided. It's like a two-sided coin, you know, double-edged sword, so to speak.
Absolutely.
The thing that I've come to realization over the last few weeks as well, when considering the whole loss thing, was how little we give space for grief. Because when you go through loss, you have to go through a grieving process. You know, we almost have ceremonies around there. Like, for example, a funeral. We have a funeral ceremony to get some sort of resolve from that event. Or I lost this person, so I want to really resolve it within myself. And almost you have like the eulogy and all that stuff to actually fully express, you know, what you needed to express to the person, but may not have the chance. I mean, ideally you have the chance when the person is still alive, but sometimes you want to really celebrate the life of the person, but we do it as a form of closure. You know, I did hear somewhere like a funeral, because, you know, technically you're dead, so you're not really conscious that it's happening. Well, I don't know, it's arguable too. But the funerals are actually more for the living than they are for the person who's deceased.
Absolutely.
Because if it makes more sense to actually tell the person while they're still alive, like, you know, I treasure you for such and such reasons, and this is the reason why it's so important to me. Well, they're still alive. Why do that when they're supposed to not conscious anymore? Like, I don't know. Like, so to me, it sounds like it's more for us to deal with our own grief and our own emotions and resolve. So if grief is such a big part of the loss equation, then we gotta look at society and how we treat grief too. Like, do we give people enough time to grieve? Like, if they've gone through trauma, it's always very easy to come along and say, you know, like, oh, just think positively, you know, like, oh, just get your act together and move on, you know, like,
not man,
you're pushing people beyond the psychological time frame to go through that grieving process, and you're moving them to the next stage, which is like, oh, think positively, or get over it, or you know, like, why look back, kind of thing. But as society, we have this impatience about it. Like, or it's my opinion that we have this impatience to rush people on. As a result, they don't really have time to feel that you know, they could actually come to a natural resolve.
Right. Yes, that's a really great point, actually. We I guess you could say that would be due to perhaps the fact that we live in, you know, modern societies, and we lead busy lives. And I wonder if perhaps, you're absolutely right, perhaps we have also lost our ability to really value this process in itself as part of the healing process for those who have been left behind. And you actually raised something really interesting about how the funeral is more for the living rather than the deceased person. Because if you think about this shows that loss in a way is a two-way street, so to speak. So when someone leaves us and they passed away, they are a loss to us. They're no longer in our lives. But by the same token, we are no longer in the deceased person's life. And so at a funeral, this is an opportunity for everyone who feels like they've just been suddenly unplugged from this person to make sense of all this. And it certainly helps when you're amongst others who are similarly grieving as you are in the same confined space and all that. That also helps with dealing with what is obviously a really painful experience, and to really look at this perhaps in a transformational way, even that, okay, a transformation, a change has happened in all our lives, but how do we then move on from this moment while still keeping this person's memory alive, perhaps? So it's about finding a way to, as you mentioned, resolve this and find closure. And it feels like this is something that we perhaps are finding through these COVID times, that it really does take time. And perhaps maybe this whole COVID madness is actually an opportunity for us to slow our lives down a little bit and just to be a bit more mindful, perhaps, of things that we may have glossed over, like the grieving process itself.
We have this thing that we keep saying in society, oh, be kind to each other. Yes, be kind. That's definitely the outcome that we want. And that's part of the slowing down and being patient. But I think a lot of people are still, it's once again a bit of a rush as well, because maybe they feel pushed to dismiss their feelings of, anger and all that stuff that's associated with their loss, that adds to the stress of it. And so, I mean, brings up the point about the big literature around the 5 stages of grief, the grieving process, having 5 stages of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then finally acceptance. So that is quite indicative of the process that we go through. We understand what denial is like. What, lockdown? Oh, what? Yeah, right. And then we get pissed off because like you lose our freedom. Like, no, I want to work. I gotta pay the bills and all that stuff. And then you find you start blaming someone, usually the government. Then I think the bargaining stage hasn't really come yet. But maybe it's the compromise that's going through the second time lockdown in New Zealand. And then after that, maybe the depression, the sadness, the tears. Like, if you think about tears and expressing the sadness of the loss, how do we tend to do that in society? We shun away from it, thinking it's a weakness. Especially men, doing work with men, like it's been trained out of us, where can we feel safe to actually grieve as men? So, and then we say, boys don't cry. Like, okay, so what happens then? Like we have got this unresolved loss and anger that just builds up in the place of the sadness. That could be a reason why so many men have anger issues, because they haven't really been allowed to grieve.
That's actually a really interesting point. Yes, it always feels like we are, as men, we are held to these perhaps more lofty standards of self-control, because if we are displaying, say, uncertainty, perhaps we're wavering, and we're just not dealing with the situation with absolute resolute decisiveness. It looks like we've lost control of ourselves, our lives, and also this perhaps might make others around us lose a sense of trust and respect in us, and so this one loss kind of translates to another. And it's really interesting that if you think about what loss is about as well, is the fact that you were unable to control this loss happening in the first place. That event in itself kind of hits you hard, because you realize, shit, this happened, and there was nothing I could do about this. I could not control the situation and this outcome. And it is actually a shock to the system. And perhaps part of the aftermath, the trauma that results in this, is around not being able to actually make sense of and deal with the shock.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a loss of control that you did highlight, which is actually a very, very pertinent point. when you lose control of a situation, or loss of control, it's essentially you can't help but feel a bit like a victim. And when you have that, then you're disempowered, like hard done by, it's natural, I believe, to get into that feeling. That feeling cannot be avoided, and so maybe it gives additional credence to the idea that you need to go through that process in order to get out of the victim mentality. But it has to go through a natural process, and everyone has the time. So it's a very individual basis. And once again, my point goes back to, why do we rush things? And it's sad because we rush things so fast. We are so like get up and go kind of mentality, that we, in the end, we have trouble letting go. We have trouble, like our trauma, especially. They just keep coming back again and again, and
something's unresolved, isn't it? That's interesting. Yes, there's something still lingering there, and it's festering away, perhaps.
Yeah. So I believe sometimes, some people need to go through that process again and again and again. Like, for example, I've been a part of this Burning Man community, and then and one of the most special places that I can find in that festival, or I don't want to call it a festival, but in the city, temporary city, is the temple. And now the temple is just filled with so much messages of love and affection, especially for people that have passed on.
Yeah. And
so many memorials around that, so much acts of love and memory, and it's powerful, extremely powerful. And that over the course of the 7 days, people put so many memorials there. The energy is so strong of that element of the symbolism of the symbols of whom they might want to eventually let go, but in the proper way. And then it culminates to the last day of the event, where the whole temple gets lit on fire, and then we all sit around there.
Right? Well, yes, that's right.
Yep. And everyone sits around, up in flames.
And it's a celebration, isn't it? It's not a mourning; it's a celebration. That's really interesting.
Well, there are two burns that happen. When the man burns, it's a celebration. Yes, right. That happens the day before, and then the day after is when the temple burns. Right. Now, there's two completely different vibes. The celebration in itself is fun. It's a big party. Yeah. But when the temple burns, you get 70,000 people around the temple, or the perimeter of the temple, and it's absolutely silent. And people are going through the process. They're crying, they're meditating, they're sitting, they're hugging. It's such a different vibe. But then that's the point of the event that really gets me. I can't help but feel emotional and being drawn into the feeling of like, we have so much pain. We have so much pain that is unresolved, and no wonder these people, including myself, we come back year after year after year to go through a grieving process again and again and again, so that one day we can fully overcome this, and then we can say we have truly moved on. I believe that's one of the biggest magic of the Burning Man experience. That's letting go. We burn and we goes up in smoke, back into the ether.
Wow, that's fascinating. And I can only imagine that being there with the throngs of people simultaneously, grieving together. It's I can only imagine how powerful that would have been, especially when everyone is grieving in their own way, and you don't know what someone else has experienced in terms of their loss, and they don't know who's exited your life, and so on and so forth. And yet, in that moment, in that silence, everyone is just one. It's just one.
Absolutely,
Very
it's beautiful
web of consciousness of people just being together and empathizing with each other's grief and just being there together in that moment and just recognizing it. That is incredible. Wow.
You actually brought up a very pertinent point as well, and that is what I will call in this case witnessing grief. It's very different when you have witnesses to actually empathize and go, I feel you and I get it. That is part of the connection of the human's need for the grieving process. That's why it goes back down to funerals. We gather together and you go, we want to commemorate our collective loss. And then here we go in that Burning Man environment. We're going, I see all your collective losses, and I want to be, and I feel it, and I'm part of it, and my loss is in there too. But here we are together as one. It's a very powerful experience. In men's work as well, it happens the same way.
Yes.
We feel that loss. Like if a father loses their custody, there's bound to be another man around who can feel that pain too. And for a little moment, it'd be like, I get it, I understand. You're not alone. And that solidarity is so powerful. It's so powerful. The connection is so powerful. And that really helps the moving on process. And then you also feel the safety to just express your emotions and cry and scream in agony if you have to, and people are there to just go, yeah, we're feeling you. We're feeling you. You have permission to do so because you need to do so. And it's heart-wrenching. It's beautiful. And for a moment, everyone just comes together and be like, okay, we got you.
Wow, yeah, that is really beautiful. Yes,
that's how it's so healing.
Yeah, wow, yes, that's actually a really great point. I hadn't considered this previously. Because say for example, at a funeral, everyone is mourning this person that's passed on, and each person has had a certain life with this person, certain interactions, certain memories and all that. Yet in that moment, even though you don't know about everyone else's interactions with this person, nonetheless, you are all now united by a collective loss of one person that has touched everyone's lives. And in that moment, you don't feel like your grief is yours to bear alone. It's now shared with everyone. And it does take a little bit of a weight off, actually. Yes, that's incredible. Yes.
That's why I think I'm starting to realize when we're going through, mental health. As a mental health practitioner, I realize that it's so important to be around, a circle of people who are going through the same thing, because that solidarity can be created, and with that, then you're gonna break through in more ways than just if it was just a one-on-one interaction. Yeah, that's why I in my experience with Native American ceremony as well, it's done together. And it goes back to the tribe, the belonging, the feeling of the same mindset, the one mind, one heart philosophy, and feeling that you're connected and feeling that someone's got your back. That's how I think real recovery can actually happen, when we unite, not when we divide. Yeah.
Yes. That's actually a really profound point, because when you're in the company of others who are likewise experiencing pain, just like you are, in that situation, there is a greater likelihood to just basically let go of judgment. You can just empathize with one another. You can cry your heart out. It's fine. You can wail and sob and roll on the ground. It's fine. Nobody's going to judge you. You're just going through your process. You can just do you and just be you, and just let it out, and to be in a safe space. To be in a safe space is incredibly important, because in that situation, you can dispense of the judgment, you can dispense of the shame, and dispense of this, of being self-conscious as well. And so it's interesting, because this is a kind of a loss, but it's kind of a positive loss, because these are burdens that you wear. You know, the fear of being judged, the fear of being mocked, the fear of being shamed, all those burdens are lifted off. And that's a great loss, actually. I get lost. I don't want these fears anymore. I want to dispense with them. And you're able to do that in a space like that with others whom you trust. Yeah, so that's an incredible point of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as it relates now to this situation, I think once again, it's like, you know, we kind of have to almost take a bit of time and not react too soon. That's my view.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, just be equanimous for now, until the need to respond arises. But certainly, this conversation is really great, because it really brings up the whole importance of the, you know, how profoundly affected we are by loss.
Absolutely.
But also how important it is to acknowledge the loss, so that we can bring in something new. And then, okay, well, is loss is one thing, but how to lose effectively, and the key word being how. There is a process. It needs to be taught better. It needs to be given a lot more space, you know, and before we start to talk about bringing in new stuff.
Absolutely. That's a great point. So what you've raised there is the importance of reframing loss. So, for example, if instead of thinking of it as something that's just been taken away from you, right? If you think about it as a letting go is a loss as well, in a sense, because you're releasing something. And if you're releasing that which you no longer want to hold on to, then this form of release really is a form of healing. In which case, by losing this dead weight, so to speak, you can actually start to ascend. And so, it's great to dispense of this.
Yeah. Deadweight. It doesn't serve you, lose it. Yeah, it also goes into your lifestyle, you know, like minimalism, you know. Just get rid of stuff. You don't need it. We're not using
more,
it.
Right? Yeah, that's true. I mean, apparently less is more. So, and that's true to a large extent. Yeah. I mean, as you know, we've both had experiences at Vipassana meditation retreats, and this is really an experience of the monastic life. Right? It's minimalist, but I have to say, with all honesty, every Vipassana course I've been on has been phenomenally healing, and it's been an absolute relief. I feel like it's been a recharge in a way. It feels like, you know, when you go through daily life, you just, you know, stuff just weighs on your life, you know, burdens you in so many ways, and you feel heavy energetically and so forth by the end of each day. And if you think of all this weight that's been piled onto you, by the end of the year, you just feel like you just want to crumble. And for me, I feel like, and I'm sure you share this sentiment too, that when you're in Vipassana, it's such a liberating experience. You can just let go of worry. And you've now lost stress and worry and anxiety, and it's a beautiful thing. It's this moment of clarity. It's God.
What you're describing is a loss of ego.
Loss of ego, yes, boom. Our ego is clearly into that. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, loss of ego. That's a great point. Because in that situation, and I think this is the beautiful thing that I've learned about absolute silence, is that in that silence, actually everyone's just equal, and it is, again, a loss of judgment. You just don't need to worry. Everyone's just you can just be, and it's okay.
It's
we don't
amazing.
have enough these moments in life. Yeah.
It's actually the vulnerability around loss is really the humanness that we get to experience in people. That's the feelings, the emotions and stuff. We wear our mask all the time, our ego, so to speak. There are many definitions of ego, but I like to call it the mask, the outward thing. Yeah, that's a real barrier. It's a real barrier to our humanness. So every time we connect to people on the human level, we heal. We just gain the energy in a good, positive way.
Absolutely. It's a lot of baggage in a sense. You can just get rid of what's weighing you down, and it's a freeing experience, and it's an opportunity to perhaps take a fresh look at perhaps the trajectory of your life. And this goes back to the point you made several times previously about the fact that we're just rushing way too much, and Vipassana retreats, actually time is of no consequence.
For sure.
And it's a beautiful thing. I have to say, I'd like to hear how your first experience went in terms of the passage of time, because I have to admit that the first 4 days were excruciating. They felt like forever, and I just couldn't. I started fantasizing even about going back to my previous life, and I was so eager just to escape coming here. So that's kind of blew my mind. And when I got my head around that, then I go, okay, no, I made a decision to be here. I should commit to this. And actually, time passed a lot faster after that. And it's really interesting is that I realized that the more you worry about something, and the more that you dwell on something, actually, the more that you are slowing time down for yourself, and so you're actually you've actually created this kind of suffering for yourself. And I guess this is what Vipassana is about. It's just just let those thoughts sit. It's okay. Acknowledge that they're there. It's fine. You don't have to drive them away, because that takes energy too. Just let them be, and eventually they'll just drift away. And when I got back to the Anapana breathing and all that, actually that really does help regulate my mind. So I wonder if you had similar experiences around the passage of time in Vipassana, perhaps.
Yeah, well, certainly, 10 days is a long time. So you start to go, well, the only time limit that you've got is the 1 hour sit where, you are done. Then you're just like, man, you just gotta keep totally, just keep at it, but certainly I think there's only one way, and that's what Vipassana did teach me, was that you just have to lose control of the situation and just focus on what exactly you have to be doing, which is to observe your breath and sensations, whatever. But really stop controlling that you have to finish soon, or stop controlling how you're going to react with the pain and all that stuff. So acceptance, actually, that's the 5th stage of grief. Going back to acceptance, like you accept that, time will be time, like,
absolutely. Yeah.
So it trains you to.
Yeah, it trains you to. Sorry, you were saying something about training?
Yeah, it trains you to accept your situation and not go like it's all very encompassing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, acceptance and just letting it be. That's a really great point. We react a lot, don't we? And this is something that's constantly reminded about actually in Vipassana, that if you keep reacting, you're just going to create one reaction after another. And so I guess the philosophy behind the meditation of absolute stillness is that if you move, and we've all done this, if you start adjusting your body, all you're doing is that you're shifting the pain from one part of your body to another. And certainly when you do the body scans, you know how sensations shift around. So actually in the stillness, yes, you acknowledge the pain, it's fine, it hurts, fucking hurts, but just let it be, and eventually it'll dissipate. Right? The more you react to it, the more the pain actually exacerbates.
Exactly. So in a way, Vipassana does teach the whole letting go of ego, letting go of your control. I mean, you're literally under lockdown, sitting in lotus position, you're locked down, like physically locked down. And then
Well,
But
I guess Vipassana trained us for this lockdown, right? I guess that's why we're doing relatively okay, maybe.
I think so. I think so, and that's why the training involves not reacting to the what's going on out there, because you realize that the external factors that you think or you perceive that are controlling you are you're reacting to it, and as a result, it's creating some imbalance in your mind, because like you start to feel like, oh, I'm being impinged, or something's controlling me, or and then you lose your centeredness, and then yeah, the consequences of that, and I think just general like inner peace, that's what you lose.
Yeah, both. That's just it. That's simple. Just that state of Zen.
Yeah. So the practice of the meditating is actually for general life and all the difficulties that life brings. So in a way, if you're not sitting down and meditating, right now is you're doing the practice of meditation by observing things coming in and just going, okay, well, no, let it go, observe, let it go. And then I accept. Actually, the truth of the reality of what's going on, thanks, Goenka, is the truth is that we're not in immediate danger, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, where's the next nearest COVID infected person, or what, if as long as I'm at home, then I know I'm safe.
Yes.
So you accept the reality of right now, this moment, I'm safe. I'm having a chat with you. No one else in the room. There are no riots, anything. Okay, I'm safe. So why worry?
Yes. Oh, that's a great point. This reminds me of something I was actually reflecting on in one of my Vipassana sits. The importance of actually stillness. So tied in with silence is also the concept of stillness. So when you're sitting in this kind of rock hard position, the idea is that actually in a way you're still there, you're still active. I mean, you can feel, for example, your heartbeat. Perhaps you can feel your blood pulsing through. Certainly, if you've got pins and needles, you can feel blood flow out of the part of your foot, and you really want to adjust it and all that. And you realize that actually, if you just keep still, when you still your body, you still your mind, and you still your surroundings, everything's just still, and it's actually the absolute stillness that it's just that inner peace. It's free. And for me, this is actually really profound, and perhaps you might be able to relate to this. So admittedly, I'm a bit of a control freak. Okay, I'm quite a bit of a control freak. I like to control my environment because there is a certain predictability and familiarity about my surroundings. I don't need to worry something's going to fall on my head because I have a position of booked in an awkward position. So everything's in its rightful place, and I want it there. But life isn't quite like that. I mean, I can do that with my room because this is my immediate surroundings. But when I go out there, it's a different kettle of fish. And again, what COVID has done for us, perhaps, is that it's really thrown off balance a little bit because everything is now even more out of control, and so you want to control this even more. And perhaps this speaks to the rushing, because we are noticing so much change going on in our lives, and obviously we're not being very still at all. We're quite frantic, in fact. But what we are rushing from is uncertainty. What we're trying to rush to is a new sense of control in an idealized environment. And so you want to get there as quickly as possible, but you realize that's not possible because there are intervening factors. And so this just compounds your frustration and you get even more frantic. And so the rushing exacerbates and so on and so forth. And it's just madness, really. So what's the answer? Well, we have to slow the hell down and find a way even to be still if possible. Because if we just keep still for a moment and just calm our nerves and breathe again, and perhaps we would actually start to find ourselves being a bit more grounded and balanced.
Yeah, well, that's definitely the lesson that Vipassana shares, is that you can't control your environment at all, but you can control your mindset and your state of mind. So mind control, but not of others, but controlling your own mind. That's the ultimate goal. Yeah, and I think it does prove to be quite a good, effective technique to help people with that. Yeah. So the loss of external control might mean you could gain internal control.
Absolutely. I kind of think of this as a bit of a revolving door concept, because when something goes, something comes back. And so a loss begets a gain begets a loss, and so on and so forth, and it just keeps going round and round. So it's okay, you're just going through a process of loss, which may eventuate in some kind of gain, and that's fine. Just flow with it. Really. Just flow with it.
Well, a very big topic, loss.
But certainly,
yeah, it's good to think about and definitely reflect on, for the future, because looking at how importantly this plays a factor in our lives and our happiness is massive. It's more massive than I actually thought it might have been. So hopefully the takeaway for both of us is to reflect on what we are actually. What would be best to lose, and whether we're actually still hanging on for whatever reason. Instead of like talking about letting go, it's also going to trying to question, like, why are we hanging on, or have we given it enough time to actually fully like let go? So
right. I think what you're speaking to there is the importance of actually making time for ourselves, and actually what better time to make time for yourself than right now, because you're locked down, you can't go out, and so you're in a more of a controlled environment, and so you're more in control of your time now. So this is actually an opportunity for you to perhaps reorganize aspects of your life and look at aspects that you may have overlooked, perhaps. So you've made an important point there, and this could lead on to something for the next topic. But I do want to finish on one final point, which is this: that what we're seeing here is actually, and you speak of this as a change, and what's going through is that something cyclical is going on. Old cycles are being replaced with new cycles, and this is just the ebbing and the flowing of the tides of time. And perhaps one thing that we want to perhaps be mindful of is that as much as we want to, mitigate our loss and we want to gain control and all that, there also has to be the right kind of balance. And this is a topic we touched on previously, because if you've lost control and you're experiencing something being taken away from you, so the loss of control in a way begets a control of loss. So because you have lost control, you have now experienced something disappearing from your life and being diminished. And this feeling really stings, it hurts. And so henceforth, what you're trying to do is to not experience this kind of pain again. You're trying to avert this pain. And so your loss of control turns into a kind of control of loss. Because now you're trying to control your future loss. And actually that in itself just perpetuates that cycle. So what's the solution to this? Well, one possibly is just acceptance. Just accept that that's gone and don't get yourself locked into that. And speaking of acceptance again, it's accepting that it's just a process of change, and just to flow with it, just to vibe with it. And
go with the flow.
We have more time on the hands to go with the flow, and we have plenty of time now to go with the flow and just take things slow.
Go with the flow and take things slow. I didn't know you became a rapper, bro. I thought you were metalhead.
That's my shadow self, bro. But that's lurking there.